keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it. So explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it. No scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool. Hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's Ponderoso, dope, so no overdose cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones. Bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Antenn Media Radio. Happy Friday the 13th. Awesome full moon. You're here with the host, Lavon. On Fridays, we try to balance all the crazy news / political happenings with some off-topic ideas. Typically talk about health. We talk about alternative healing methods, we talk about meditation, and we talk about things that are going on in the world. My tip is to find back out what I can indeed do on Monday and Wednesdays, as well as give you guys a different type of perspective. Tonight I want to talk about things that may seem unrelated, but don't be fooled by appearances. So tonight's topics are the universe as I'm going to talk about how we live in a hologram and see if you guys can relate to my perspective. We're also going to talk about a new planet that was discovered. We're going to speak on something that I do a lot of research about, which is ADHD, something close to my heart. We're going to talk about what we're doing in society and how it's a demonstration where we've come in regards to the manner in which we care for one another. I'm talking about these anti-homeless spikes. Have you guys heard about these? We're going to get more into detail. It's pretty outrageous, and I have a solution. I have things we can do to combat it if they ever become apparent in the city where you live. Okay? So, you guys heard me talk about how we live. And my most favorite person to quote about this is Dr. George Gonzalez. He's a chiropractor, and he like your body is a hologram. A hologram is when you can take any component of a thing, and within it is the thing entirely. So if you take that principle and apply it to your body, you are a hologram because your cells are all composed together to create you. But the cell itself, when when observed individually, contains all the necessary parts to make you. And something else that you may find interesting is our cells actually communicate via light. So, in essence, we are these projections of light just vibrating at a certain frequency. And there's some new evidence that suggests that the world we live in is a hologram. So, this was published on May 27th on the website themindunleashed.org, and it's titled "Physicists Discover Clearest Evidence Yet That the Universe is a Hologram." And they're quoting something that was originally published by the Journal of Nature and called it "The Clearest Evidence Yet." So the problem is that people haven't been able to explain the universe as explained by quantum physics and Einstein's theory of gravity. The two new scientific papers are the culmination by Yoshimi Hakutake, Eberaki, and with the hypothetical calculations of the energies of black holes in different universities. The idea of the universe existing as a hologram doesn't refer to a matrix-like illusion, but the theory that the three dimensions we perceive are actually just painted onto the cosmological horizon, the boundary of the known universe. If this sounds paradoxical, try to imagine a holographic picture that changes 4 different billboards within one. Have you seen those? They get fancy and they even put them on cars. It's super creepy / distracting. I haven't seen one in a while. Maybe it was causing too many accidents. Anyways, although the picture is two-dimensional, observing it from different locations creates the illusion that it is 3D. The universe points and consistencies between general relativity and quantum physics. Although Einstein's work underpins much of modern physics, at certain extremes, such as the middle of a black hole, the principles he outlined break down the laws of quantum physics take over. The traditional method of reconciling these two models has come from the 1997 work of theoretical physicist Juan Maldacena, whose ideas built upon string theory. This is one of the most respected theories of everything, and it puts that one-dimensional vibrating objects known as strings are the elementary particles of the universe. Maldacena has welcomed the new research by Hakutake and his team, telling the journal Nature that the findings are an interesting way to test many ideas in the quantum gravity and string theory. Leonard, a theoretical physicist regarded as one of the fathers of string theory, added that the work by the team numerically confirmed, perhaps for the first time, something we were fairly sure had to be true, but was still at a conjuncture. So, I'm reading this to you because I want to demonstrate to you that we have no idea. We have all these theories and speculations of things that exist, but we can't agree because the words we use, right? We all want to call it something else. Everything we experience, we have a name for it. We all have a specific manner in which we can experience, correct? And what if we're all talking about the same things all the time, but using different words? That is what I want you to consider seeing through all of these topics, okay? Go into more detail here about the science behind the original article can be found on nature.com. I can literally get trapped into a black hole if I go too much into this subject, and I'll get trapped, and then we won't get through of our topics. It's called Simulations Backup Theory That the Universe is a Hologram. It was posted on December 10th, 2013, so that's just the papers I was just speaking on, okay? Something else interesting that happened in relation to the cosmos recently, and kind of what I'm seeing is that we're just speculating. You know, we are constantly making new discoveries, and I want to suggest that perhaps that's because the first response. Back in the beginning show, you guys, we had an episode where I talked about what occurs in the body, specifically when and during a stress. Basically, oh my gosh, we need to survive, and you are like in a tunnel. You have blind sights to the clear solution, and you basically decide, like, I'm going to do this. And you limit your observations. Your brain can't focus on too many things at once because it's focused on surviving. But when you're in a relaxed, when the body is calm and not feeling like it's going to die at any moment, you literally have a broader perspective. You're operating in a manner that, because of its relaxation feelings, is more receptive. So my point being here is, what if being in a constant state of stress and worry and frantic and movements and worrying about the future gives us this specific perspective of our life? And you guys are pretty aware of what's going on. More and more people are kind of going through a shift in their life where they're wanting to do less consuming and more collaborating, if you will. Less, more creating. Less bigot, practicing less hatred, and encouraging more love. More time learning and growing and changing and shifting rather than being motionless. And I think perhaps that's occurring because we've kind of come to this place where we realize that we are in so much control of what we're experiencing. This is pretty much a common idea that I think is understood through most people, more than I would expect. Synchronicity is everywhere for me. It's probably for you too. In these moments of clarity, you're like, oh, okay, confirmation, things make sense. And when you have that type of experience in your life, you have a very broadened perspective. You're open to things, and you're not using your flight response. Instead, you're in an observation mode. So I encourage that, and I want to suggest that perhaps, this collective feeling of, it's okay. As long as I'm okay, it's okay. Perhaps maybe that's why we're always discovering these new places within the cosmos. I study space a lot. It is one of my most treasured subjects. And I was interested to read this article that was published on the 5th of June, also by the Mind Unleashed. It's called Astronomers Discover Godzilla Planet, which is 17 times heavier than Earth. Let's see here. An exoplanet located 560 light years away from Earth is in the constellation Draco. Draco, was recently discovered by researchers at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Having studied Kepler 10c, an exoplanet was named. They announced that it is a known kind of planet with such characteristics that, based on what scientists thought until today, normally should not exist. Because of the mass of the planet, which is many times greater than that of the Earth, astronomers call it a mega-Earth, or give it a more impressive title as the Godzilla of Earths. Kepler-10c is a rocky planet with a diameter 2.3 times that of the Earth and a mass 7 greater than that planet. Scientists thought that planets of this size attract very large amounts of hydrogen in the process of their formation. These are giants, like Jupiter. The prevailing theory stated that the formation of a rocky planet of this size is not feasible. But the researchers at the Harvard-Smithsonian Institute is a rocky planet which, even despite the fact that it is very close to its parent star, has managed to maintain its atmosphere, which is even more interesting. Another major finding is related to the age of the Kepler-10c. The planetary system that includes the mega-Earth was formed about 11 billion years ago, or about 3 billion years after the Big Bang, from which the universe emerged. Our system was formed about 4.5 billion years ago. This means that the rocky planets, which are considered to be the most hospitable to life, were formed much earlier than astronomers previously thought. So, let's see here. An obvious conclusion is that since a rocky planet was formed earlier, there potentially was more time for life to emerge and evolve on it. Until now, scientists believe that the ancient stars formed in the childhood of the universe could not support the formation of rocky planets, because it's unclear whether they were all the necessary elements. It's unclear whether there were all at that stage of the universe. After the discovery of Kepler-10c, researchers looking for life in space will probably pay most attention to planetary systems. So it's pretty interesting. We're constantly discovering new places that can exist. Do you think that's perhaps because we're broadening our perspective? Think about our society and how it's developed over time. The progression of man. Have you noticed that every time there's a new acceptance of ideas, we have an explosion in technology? I mean, it doesn't seem that radical, right? But when you broaden your mind, when you change your perspective, you can alter your world. That's my ultimate purpose, my ultimate message for people, is that you are in control. You decide what comes in and out of your life. I couldn't share this with you unless I had experienced it myself. I used to be a very pessimistic, the world's out to get me victim to my life. I don't know if I've shared that with you guys before, but that's just how I lived. And that's how I existed. And bad things always happened to me, right? I mean, that's what I thought. I mean, constantly I was just bombarded with unideal situations. Then one day I realized, like, what if my attitude about the situations was better? Do you think they would change? And there's some science behind that. If you fake smile, you actually get happy. Your brain releases happy stuff, and you go, "Whew, I'm happy now." You can do that in every aspect. My business, my baby business can be compared to a newly sprouted seedling that's awaiting transplantation. I've been growing this seed for 4 years, so I've waited a really long time for it to sprout. And ironically, and kind of magically, the moment it sprouted, I was faced with horrible weather. The horrible weather being the notion that I actually have to move my entire operation. I'm not sure where it's going yet, but the unknown to me is exciting, and I'm trying to stay positive and excited about the opportunity to ensure that good things happen. It could be a freak out moment, though. I could be freaking out about it, and people who know it's going on, or like, why aren't you freaking out? Because I'm excited. You know, if my little seedling has the opportunity now to grow in a box without any parameters, you can compare the place where I am now to a box with parameters. Even though there's ample space to do what I desire, the situation is just no longer the same, right? So think of your life as that. You know, you're a flower, and you decide what box you want to hang out in. If a box at all, you plant your little roots and you settle in where you decide, nobody else. You're a fancy kind of plant that transplants itself and makes all of these independent decisions. Okay? So I encourage you guys to do that. And that brings me to my next topic. This thing that I'm talking about, this power, this control. It might sound completely foreign to you. Maybe you're not one of those people that I seem to attract that has this same ideal. Maybe you're the old Lavon that used to feel like a victim to her life. And I want to encourage you to change your perspective and alter your world. And I want to talk about a title or a name I would give to people who are different. Because, you know, as creatures, it's natural for us to want to assimilate, right? We want to be like the people we're around. We do this instinctively to survive, and also comfortable. We want to be accepted by our peers, and it's kind of essential to, you know, reproduce. So that's part of it too. But why? Why in our society is it not okay to be a plant without a box? Why can't we grow like wildflowers? And one thing that I have to support this is something that we call ADHD. This name that we made for this list of characteristics, right? My good friend, my soul sister, I've been talking about this for weeks, and it's something that gets us compassionate. And that's something, compassionate is when you're compassionate about something and you're pissed off. Super hazardous combo, especially when somebody's going to do something about it. So I decided that I'm going to talk about ADHD until I can't talk about ADHD anymore, because it's out to be called this thing formerly referred to as ADHD. That would be awesome. So I'm putting that out in their universe. A documentary that supports the obscene manner in which we practice mass consumption, or we advocate mass consumption of pharmaceuticals by the youth, is a documentary called The Medicated Child. And it demonstrates the fact that in recent years there's been a dramatic increase in the number of the children being diagnosed with serious psychiatric disorders and prescribed medications that are just beginning to be tested in the children. I'm going to do a little reading from pbs.org. They have an overview of the documentary. So basically, the producer, Marcia Gavaria, I'm waiting for it, where she confronts psychiatrists, researchers, and government regulators about the risks, benefits, and many questions surrounding prescription drugs for troubled children. The biggest current controversy surrounds the diagnosis of bipolar disorder, formerly called manic depression. Formerly called bipolar disorder, was long believed to exist only in adults, but in the mid-90s, bipolar in children began to be diagnosed at much higher rates, sometimes in as young as 4. Rates of bipolar diagnoses in children have increased markedly in many countries over the last 5 to 7 years, says Dr. Stephen Hyman, a former director of the National Institute of Mental Health. I think the question is, are these diagnoses right? And in truth, I don't really know the answer. Like many of the million children now diagnosed with bipolar. 5-year-old Jacob Solomon was initially believed to suffer from ADHD. His parents reluctantly started him on Ritalin, but over the next 5 years, Jacob would be put on drug after drug. I started to feel out of control, said his father. Nobody ever said we can work with this through therapy and things like that. Everywhere he looked, it was take meds, take meds, take meds. Multiple medications had helped improve his mood, but they also left him with a severe tick in his neck, which doctors are having trouble fully explaining. We're dealing with developing minds and brains, and medications have a whole different impact on the young developing child than they do an adult, says Dr. Marianne Rambolt, the chief of psychiatry at Denver Children's Hospital. We don't understand that impact very well. That's why we're still in the dark ages. And this is where I have a problem. We make up these words for things, and we try to make sense of these behaviors, right? Because we're uncomfortable in general when we're growing in broccoli. These gardens need to be in line. There can be no little wildflowers anywhere. And we're testing this spray to herd the plants, right? Because these are independent plants. We're testing this spray we'll call chemical P for and then we just build a fence around them, and then we just build a trench. And then when they get out again, we make a bridge. You see what I'm saying? It's like we're not solving the problem. We're not letting these plants be free range. Instead, we're constantly fighting them. Why are we so quick to prescribe medication that causes another problem and that we're not sure is even fixing an issue? Before we ask, what is the problem? I encourage people to understand that every action has a reaction. Every reaction is caused by an action. And specific actions create a response and an alert to the body saying, hey, I need attention. And what happens when you ignore that alert by suppressing it with a pill? You're missing a step, right? We'll go further into it here. I'll quote an expert who claims that ADHD is not a real disease. So bear with me while my awesome internet loads my citation here. I apologize, guys. My internet's being so awesome. So this was finished on March 30th, which was not too long ago. So a second world-renowned scientist has come forward to support claims that ADHD is not a disease. Description, symptoms, used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder may have long-term adverse effects. It comes after U.S. neurologist Richard Sewell claimed ADHD exists. He said treating children's hyperactivity with drugs was similar to giving a heart attack patient painkillers. It ignores the cause of the problem, which could be as simple as an iron deficiency. Dr. Perry, a neuroscientist at the Child Trauma Academy in Houston, Texas, will meet Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt and work with Pension Secretary Ian Duncan Smith today at a lecture. Some 25% of children are thought to have ADHD. Symptoms include short attention span, restlessness, and fidgeting. Ooh, horrible. Dr. Perry said, it's best thought as a description, as any one of us at any given time would fit at least Hi guys, sorry about that. Awesome internet kicked me off. Anyways, we were talking about ADHD. We were talking about how any one of us at any given time would at least have a couple of the symptoms described, which include short attention span, restlessness, and fidgeting. That's pretty much me every other hour at work. I can't focus, I start daydreaming, I'm thinking about a million other things, I get restless, I fidget, my nerves are functioning, my body wants to move. When is it ever comfortable to be sedentary if you have a fast-paced mind? If you're anything like me, which I think most of these people who have ADHD, your brain is just so excited to be functioning, and you just want to do everything simultaneously. And I say, yeah, that's a pretty extreme way to try and exist in a really slow-moving world. But it's possible without medication, and that's what I'm getting to here. Dr. Perry said, it is best thought of as a description. He said that ADHD was a label for a set of symptoms, adding, it's not a real disease, but rather a description. He implied that if you give drugs to children with ADHD, they will need progressively larger doses as they get older to achieve the same effect. So they give you these drugs at a young age, and then guess what? You're going to need these forever, and you're going to need to take a stronger dose as you grow. He likened it to children having lots of sweets or being allowed to take risks. As they grew, they would need more sweet things or greater risk to feel the same pleasure response. He said, if you give psychostimulants to animals when they are young, their reward systems change. They require much more stimulation to get the same levels of pleasure. He added, taking the medication influences the systems in ways we don't always understand. Dr. Perry said that other therapies such as yoga or even playing the drums could be as effective as medication. Graham Allen, a Labour MP and EIF chairman, said Dr. Perry was the best in his field, adding many senior politicians are already convinced by the philosophy of his research. So, I want to quote the NHS Choices website. They describe the disorder as being a group of behavioral symptoms that include inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness. Common symptoms include a short attention span, restlessness or constant fidgeting, and being easily distracted. Many people with ADHD also have learning difficulties and other problems such as sleep disorders. The condition is normally diagnosed between the ages of 3 to 7. Potential risk factors include smoking, alcohol, drug abuse during pregnancy, premature birth, and simply being male. So males are more often than girls being diagnosed with ADHD, which saddens me as the mom of a bouncy little boy. If I didn't understand that children are bouncy and shouldn't be put into boxes, I could go to the doctor and I could say, I think I want to have Cameron tested for ADHD. And perhaps if his teacher hadn't been a teacher for 50 years and she hadn't understood that Cameron is a high-functioning individual, she could have said to her peers, I think I want to suggest that child goes and gets tested for ADHD. My son is all of those symptoms times 100. He used to be called the full throttle child. He just would literally climb walls. He started talking at 5 months, started walking at 9 months, ridiculously articulate by 1, speaking in full sentences. He uses words such as deflected, deconstructed, delectable, elusive, obscure. If you can imagine having a conversation with a 6-year-old. So there's two sides to Cameron. There's this highly intelligent little man, and then this Tigger I call him a Tigger because he just can't stop moving. And I could so easily sedate him, and I could have a simple experience as a parent, and I could not be tested every waking moment of my existence within Cameron's life sphere because he questions everything that I do. He has 5 questions for every question, and I'm so thankful for that. Because of my perspective, I have a live-in professor / future lawyer of the world / best judge ever / most righteous human ever. He's amazing. And every moment I'm like, wow, this is trying. You know, in my mind I'm like, wow, this is trying. But at the same time, he's teaching me so many things. What a gift to look at the world through his eyes as well as my own. That's what I feel like. He's given me an opportunity to relive my childhood. Every day that he exists is another day that I exist. And I couldn't imagine changing him. I couldn't imagine it. And, you know, I can't speak for parents who have a different experience than me. I can only speak about what I know. And being a health professional, as well as a mommy and an aspiring nutritionist and a health coach, I'm trying to include all of the things that I love. And the more and more I learn, the more and more it's solidified in my mind that everything is connected. And we are what we eat, and we are the environment we thrive in or not thrive in. And we've got to start considering that these words and these categories that we put people into, it's not fair. You know, Einstein said, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll grow up its whole life thinking that it is useless. And I couldn't agree with that statement more. And I think we need to spend less time as a populace trying to explain things and give them definitions and put them into categories and organize them in a beautiful fashion, and instead try and be objective and say, okay, blue is blue, red is red, instead of, you know, oh, that's periwinkle blue and that's fuchsia. Cool story. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but my point is that we're so critical. We're so critical. And what are we doing? We don't even know what's going on in space. We don't know what's going on in the ocean. We're so busy trying to find solutions to things. And it's all distractions. What's going on inside of you? Michael Jackson said, his song Man in the Mirror, it's so powerful. You know, he encourages us to make a change internally, in that if you do so, you can have a beautiful, profound, rippling, effective, long-lasting, positive, vibrational effect on everything else. Three more. So, what if what we're calling ADHD a new type of human? What if because, you know, as we evolve and change every year, people are becoming smarter and quicker and more effective. What if my son is an advanced human? Think about it. He is the best of what I've got, plus the best of what his dad's got. So he is me squared, right? And what if this new thinking or this new method of existing is really evolution, and what if we're preventing it? What if my son is medicated, right? Say I medicate him his whole life. What happens when he's in his mid-20s and he's having all of these, he's got like 30 medications. If you watch The Medical Boy, ends up taking like 20 plus medicines because medicine A causes a symptom that medicine B could only help. And then that causes a symptom which medicine C can help. And that causes, you know what I mean? And what if that's my kid, and in his mid-20s, he's got all these health conditions, and now he can't reproduce. You know, he's got sexual organ dysfunction. People who take Ritalin often have issues with keeping an erection and, like, having ejaculations normally. You know, they have low sperm count. So there goes my awesome DNA. There goes my, you know, what if my grandchild could have been, like, some amazing inventor? The first thing my kid ever asked me was, what holds up the moon? Like, so profound. What holds up the moon? What are we doing, right? What are we doing? That's what I want to think about. This article was published on March 14th. It's titled, ADHD Does Not Exist. Over the course of my career, I found more than 20 conditions that can lead to symptoms of ADHD, each of which requires its own approach to treatment, raising a generation of children and now adults who can't live without stimulants is no solution. Come on, awesome internet, be my friend. Okay. The New York Times reported that from 2008 to 2012, the number of adults taking medications for ADHD increased by 53%, and that among the young American adults, it nearly doubled. While this is a staggering statistic and points to younger generations becoming frequently reliant to stimulants, frankly, I'm not too surprised. Over my 50-year career in behavior neurology and treating patients with ADHD, it has been in the past decade that I have seen these diagnoses truly skyrocket. Every day, my colleagues and I see more and more people coming in claiming that they have trouble paying attention at school or work and diagnosing themselves with ADHD. And why shouldn't they? If someone finds it difficult to pay attention or feels somewhat hyperactive, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has those symptoms right there in its name. And it's an easy catch-all phrase that saves time for doctors to boot. But can we really lump all these people together? What if there are other things causing people to feel distracted? I don't deny that we, as a population, are more distracted today than we ever were before. And I don't deny that some of these patients who are distracted and impulsive need help. What I do deny is the generally accepted definition of ADHD, which it's long overdue for an update. In short, I've come to believe, based on decades of treating patients, that ADHD, as currently defined by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM, and as understood in the public imagination, does not exist. Allow me to explain what I mean. Ever since 1937, when Dr. Charles Bradley discovered that children who displayed symptoms of attention deficit and hyperactivity responded well to benzodrine, a stimulant, would have been thinking about this disorder in almost the same way. That's his perspective, right? Soon after Bradley's discovery, the medical community began labeling children with these symptoms as having minimal brain dysfunction, or MBD, and treating them with the same stimulants, such as Ritalin and Celert. In the intervening years, the DSM changed the labeling numerous times, from hyperkinetic reaction of childhood. It wasn't until 1980 that the DSM-3 introduced a classification for adults with the condition to the current label ADHD. But regardless of the label, we have been giving patients different variants of stimulant medication to cover up the symptoms, right? We're covering up that reaction. You'd think that after decades of advancements in neuroscience, we would shift our thinking or change our perspective. Today, the 5th edition of the DSM only requires one to exhibit 5 of 18 possible symptoms to qualify for an ADHD diagnosis. If you haven't seen this list, look it up. It will probably bother you. How many of us can claim that we have difficulty with organization or a tendency to lose things, that we are frequently forgetful or distracted, or fail to pay close attention to details? Under these subjective criteria, the entire U.S. population could potentially qualify. We've all had these moments, and in moderate amounts, they're a normal part of a human condition, right? However, there are some instances in which attention symptoms are severe enough that patients truly, of course, in my career, I have found more than 20 conditions that can lead them to ADHD, each of which requires its own approach to treatment. Among these are sleep disorders, undiagnosed vision and hearing problems, substance abuse such as marijuana and alcohol in particular, iron deficiency. There's another doctor suggesting that a diet-related deficiency could be an issue. How weird. Allergies, especially airborne and gluten intolerance. Gluten. Weird. Bipolar and major depressive disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and even learning disabilities like dyslexia, to name a few. Any one of these issues will fit into the ADHD criteria outlined by the DSM. But stimulants are not the way to treat them. So what's so bad about stimulants, you might wonder? They seem to help a lot of people, don't they? The article mentions that the drugs can temper hallmark symptoms like severe inattention and hyperactivity, but also carries risks like sleep deprivation, and more rarely, addiction and hallucinations. But this is only part of the picture. First, addiction to stimulant medication is not rare. It's very common. The drug's addictive qualities are obvious. We only need to observe many patients who are forced to periodically increase their dosage if they want to concentrate. This is because the body stops producing the appropriate levels of neurotransmitters that ADHD medicines replace, a trademark of addictive substances. I worry, I worry that a generation of Americans won't be able to concentrate without this medication. Big Pharma is understandably not as concerned. Second, there are many side effects to ADHD medication that most people are not aware of. Increased anxiety, irritable or depressed mood, severe weight loss due to appetite suppression, and even potential for suicide. There are also consequences that are even less well known. For example, many patients on stimulants report having erectile dysfunction when they are on the medication. Remember we talked about that? Third, stimulants work for many people in the short term, but for those with an underlying condition, causing them to feel distracted. The drugs serve as band-aids at best, masking and sometimes exacerbating the source of the problem. In my view, there are two types of people who are diagnosed with ADHD. Those who exhibit normal levels of distraction and impulsiveness, and those who have another condition or disorder that requires individual treatment. So this doctor suggests that people are normally distracted and impulsive, right? We talked about those prearranged plants earlier. That was a metaphor to describe people. And then he also suggests that the other half who are diagnosed, have another underlying condition that's being misdiagnosed, okay? So let's continue. For my patients who are in the first category, I recommend that they eat right, exercise more often, get 8 hours of quality sleep a night, minimize caffeine intake in the afternoon, monitor their cell phone use while they are working, and most important, do something they're passionate about. Like many children who act out because they are not challenged enough in the classroom, adults whose jobs or classwork are not personally fulfilling or don't engage in a meaningful hobby will understandably become bored, depressed, and distracted. In addition, today's rising standards are pressuring children and adults to perform better and longer at school and work. I too often see patients who hope to excel on 4 hours of sleep a night with help from stimulants, but this is dangerous, unhealthy, and unsuitable way of living over the long term. For my second group of patients with severe attention issues, I require a full evaluation to find a source of the problem. Usually once the original condition is found and treated, the ADHD symptoms go away. Whoa. You're telling me that this doctor does research to try and figure out the cause of a problem? That's crazy. It's time to rethink our understanding of this condition, offer more thorough diagnostic work, and help get people the right treatment for attention deficit and hyperactivity. You can read more from Dr. Richard Sowell. He's a behavior neurologist practicing in Chicago. His book's called ADHD Does Not Exist. check it out. Some pretty staggering ideals. The part that I like when we talk about, when Dr. Richard talks about what people can do to overcome ADHD, and you notice that all of these things don't require drugs. So first thing he recommends is that people eat right. And you know I'm a firm believer in you are what you eat. You literally are constantly in a state of cleaning and repairing. That's all your body knows how to do, whether or not you're aware of it. It's even happening right now. Your body wants to be well, your body loves to be well, but the things that we do to it aren't so awesome. We eat processed food, but we don't know it's bad for us, right? We eat GMOs, but we don't know those are bad for us. We drink all kinds of awesome chemicals in our water, like fluoride, which is a byproduct, but we don't know about that, right? We take all these drugs that our doctors prescribe us, but that's because they're good for us. And we eat all these unnatural, man-made, box can Frankenfoods, and then we wonder why we don't feel good. None of us get enough exercise because we all have these JOBs that typically render us stationary. We're not getting enough sleep because when we come home we feel so much like we've been plugged in that we want to relax, and before you know it, it's like super late and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta do that all over again. So then you don't get enough sleep, and then we're taking these stimulants to help us get through the day because we're all tired at like 2 o'clock because our body wants to take a nap. Siestas are what's up. Everybody should have a siesta in the middle of the day. Seriously. Talk about a makeover. I encourage that. We're being bombarded constantly by all these frequencies without our control. For example, our cell phones. They're awesome little devices think about the towers that are everywhere. Think about all the wireless stuff we have bouncing around. As a holographic vibrational creature, how do you think that's affecting you? Seriously, if you adapt that perspective, what do you think is happening to you? I compare it to the way you feel when you listen to something you really, really love. Think of your favorite song right now. How does it sound? What does it do to your body? Can you feel it thumping in your chest? And you can literally to feel whatever emotion it evokes, correct? Well, what if that's happening to you all the time? What if you're being influenced by signals that you can't hear, but your body is aware of? So I encourage you to do a little test. Spend a week or even 3 or 4 days just making more decisions. Try to get a little more sleep. Try to stretch. Limit your time with technology. Just go outside. Breathe some oxygen. Have you heard of it? It's awesome. So good. Drink some really clean water. Sit around and just be. Try that. It's awesome. And most importantly, find something you love. I know that I love encouraging people to change their perspective and alter their world. I love ensuring or knowing that maybe something I'm doing is making somebody a version of themselves. Well, guys, we talked about the universe as we know it, and we concluded, what do we really know? We talked about the fact that we may be holograms. Science does support it. We talked about discovery of a new planet, which ties back into what do we know. And I compared that to our broadening horizons. And then I discussed a little about the way we put things into categories to try and define them and understand them. It's part of our assimilation. And what if things like ADHD, that's something we call this list of characteristics. What if it's like an advanced form of human? We propose that. And what if we're going about handling situations we encounter in the wrong manner? What if instead we took a more relaxed approach and tried to make sure that our reactions are better planned based on our actions. So if you give a machine good gasoline and you tune it up and you make sure all of its parts are functioning properly, it's going to function well. You're putting good energy into it. It's going to have a nice reaction. You are much the same way. And I feel like we've forgotten this as a whole. And something that I've read recently that's just literally given me nightmares of all the other things going on in the world. Have you guys heard about these anti-homeless spikes? So in hopes to discourage people from taking advantage of free existence, London neighborhoods have installed anti-homeless spikes. So they're basically like those things you see on buildings to deter pigeons, but for people. So there's a lot of controversy around this. And I hope that it demonstrates to you how detached we have become. This is cruel, and it's disgusting. And I suggest that if you care, go cut those suckers. Build a bed on top of it. I want you to construct like the most awesome bunk bed and just start putting them all over. I think I'm going to do that. It's just, we've got to address social issues. If we don't take care of the people who need it the most, that's a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And if you encourage the idea that perhaps I am another version of you and you are another version of me, perhaps we can have that awesome vibrational, lasting, positive effect on not only us, but on everybody else. So I hope you guys were encouraged to change your perspective and alter your world this evening. Let's take care of the homeless people because they need our love the most. We've forgotten about them, and I think it's time we do something about it. Next week I'm going to talk about my exact plan to take care of the homeless. A lot of my friends and I share this passion. You know, that's part of being healthy. Do what you love. I love to make people happy, and I love to see people thriving and performing at optimal function. It's going to be my life purpose to take care of everybody, especially the ones who are forgotten. So next week, we're going to talk about how to help the homeless. I have several solutions. You guys have a beautiful weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, and we'll see you back on Monday. Good night.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.